What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Costa, and today we have yet another exciting guest in store for you. Our guest today first appeared on the show back in June of 2021 as a member of the Gone Bridge podcast. In that episode, we talked all things Red Sox and how their group came to be. Now, one of the original leaders of that group, Andrew Gardner, has made a name for himself in the ultra-competitive world of sports broadcasting. He's called games for Harvard, BC, BU, UConn, Northeastern, UMass Lowell, and even his alma mater, UNH. So it is my pleasure to welcome Andrew back to the show. Let's go jump in and take a listen. All right, we're joined here with sports broadcaster Andrew Gardner. Andrew, glad to have you back on the show. I know it's been a little bit. Thank you for taking the time.
Brian, pumped to be back. Down to the Wire, round two. Was it 3 or 4 years ago?
So I looked at. Oh, go ahead. So I looked it up. It was 4 years ago. I think the exact date was like June, I think 19th of 2021. And mind you, I went back and I looked at that last episode you were on, and myself included. We looked like children.
That is crazy. Crazy that Gone Bridge has kind of it's slowed down a lot. We're not doing it much anymore. But 4 years ago, I mean, time has just totally flown. What a fun year 2021 was for the Sox too. Maybe this year will be similar.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, man? I mean, here's hoping. I maybe we'll even talk some Sox on this podcast today too. We'll see where that goes. But obviously, man, I know it's been a little bit. I know you were doing your thing in the podcasting game, and now you're moving over into this broadcasting space, and kind of just talk about how this has kind of all started for you. Like, was this something that started back in undergrad? Was this a grad kind of a post grad sort of thing? Talk about how this started.
Yeah, so it's been quite the journey for me, and it started my freshman year, kind of like the week before COVID started, and this is kind of like the long-winded intro, but I'll shorten it down. Kind of how Gone Bridge started too was at the student radio station, and me getting my first reps in. Loved talking about sports, knew it was something that I wanted to somehow get into, whatever way that was. So it was something I started at the school radio station. Week before COVID starts, we get sent home. Someone, a guy by the name of Kevin Larney, 2 years older than me, he kind of starts up this podcast, or had started it around that time. And so during COVID, no one's doing anything. So he's reaching out to all these celebrities, trying to get episodes out. And I'm like, hey, let me help you however I can, because school's online. I'm not doing much. Looking for something to do. So ended up doing shows with him, a lot of fun, and then get back to school that fall, and that was when Gone Bridge kind of started. Me, Steve Brady, Alex Clausen, two guys who I met in my fraternity, and it just kind of started by realizing we all love the Sox. We all listen to Section 10, the Red Sox podcast, and I was like, hey, I've kind of started doing this. Why don't we make our own show? And so it started from there. We did 160 episodes of the show. The last, honestly, 4 years. This year I won't count too much. But after 2 years of doing that, just doing Red Sox stuff, I knew too, UNH, that was where I went to college. I loved hockey. That was what I played growing up. I liked writing. That was kind of something that I also started doing my freshman year. So I got involved in the school newspaper and I was the beat writer for the field hockey team and the men's ice hockey team. And then through the sports editor, he did some sports broadcasting, a guy by the name of Cam Beal. And he was like, hey, we need someone to do color commentary for men's soccer game versus Colgate. This was 2 or 3 days before the game happened. He's like, would you want to do it? And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. Looking back at it, it was pretty bad. I had no notes, just walked into the game. I probably hadn't watched a soccer game since the 2018 World Cup too. Was it 2018. Yeah. So I'm not even a big soccer guy, kind of just piecing it together, but I guess it went well enough that, they had me back, and from there I essentially just said no to any or said yes to every opportunity. I was I did color for basically all sports my junior year of college. Senior year, after camp graduated, I did a little more play-by-play, got some more reps in. I did a men's hockey game that year, which was awesome. And then UMass Lowell ended up like needing someone to fill in, so I got my foot in the door there. And then yeah, I graduated in 2023. It's been over 2 years now, which is crazy. But uh, just putting together tapes, trying to get better on my own, just improvement, 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 and it's allowed me to. I did games at 8 different schools this year, which was awesome. Love doing the hockey, but do a lot of soccer. I did volleyball. Saw you at the Bryant UNH basketball game. Did some baseball for BC and Harvard in the spring. So it's just been a lot of fun. It was kind of, it's all been started just from like the podcast, honestly. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, that's awesome to hear. I mean, like it's so funny because like you're talking about a lot of those different ways you started, and for myself as well, like there were so many parallels. I think, I started up my show like pretty similarly, like right before COVID happened. I think like a lot of shows were kind of popping up in like February of 2020. I feel like it, and then it all kind of hit the fan. And kind of similar to you, like with you and your friend, I remember being at home over COVID, and my two co-hosts at the time, Tyler and Carter, we came together and we did like, I think it was like a 2 hour like like kind of like live stream event where we had the NFL draft going, and it was like this big live coverage thing. And it was awesome at the time. And I remember that carried back into school. And you were talking about your experience with soccer. I was going to ask if you had watched any soccer up until that, and then you kind of answered that. I had a pretty similar experience during, I think it was also my sophomore year. So the way Bryant did stuff that fall was that majority of the sports like really just did not happen in that fall season. Everything got pushed to the spring, and it was just a giant like cluster. Like everything was just going on at like you had like three different sports going on at one time.
Yep.
And at Bryant, like we at least on the communication side, they had between like 1 to 2 like full-time people, depending on the year. So it was crazy to see how it was all going down. And I remember I actually got called in to do, it wasn't a soccer game, it was a field hockey game. And at least you had the credit of watching the 2018 World Cup. When I did that field hockey game, man, I don't think I'd ever seen a full, front to back field hockey game. And I remember I walked into that thing, and I think I might have honestly said on the mic, I have no idea what I'm doing, but let's roll with it. And
I had the same exact experience my freshman year or junior year too. My first year of broadcasting, in I think it was late September, like a month into school. So UNH, I think it was UC Davis. Fun fact, UC Davis and Stanford used to be in the America East for field hockey.
Yep.
Not exactly sure why that was. Now they're in the ACC, but they used to make the trip east. They'd play UVM. I'm trying to remember, like Albany. They'd make the trek out here. But same thing. I've watched the highlights back from that game. I still don't know a ton about field hockey. I've done, I think, like 2 or 3 games since then. But yeah, not much to be said about my knowledge there.
Yeah, I feel so bad for the lady who recommended me for that game, because prior to, I had done a couple baseball and softball broadcasts, which I was pretty confident with, and like I know the sport, so I was like, oh, like this is great. And I remember I got on, and like I had no idea. Like it got to like a penalty corner, and I was just like, there's some sort of stoppage of play here. Don't know what's going on.
Yep.
And then yeah, like now I've done enough field hockey games of like covering it as a camera person or a staff person to where going back into it, I think I would have known what was going on. But like in retrospect, man, it was nuts kind of going into that thing.
Yeah, it's all about watching the game. Like the more you can watch, even if you're not broadcasting, like the easier it is. Again, can be said about any sport. I started doing water polo this year at Harvard, and I've had a lot of fun doing it. Honestly, I've had a lot more fun than I was like expecting. Because again, same thing. I did not know anything going into it. Now I would say I'm pretty fluent in the game, but sometimes there are still whistles that I'm like a little iffy on. But there are ways to work around it if you don't exactly know what's going on.
No, totally, man. And I'll definitely talk with you some more about that. But I think first, like, I've kind of buried the lead here, and it was kind of how, we actually got this podcast kind of going in the first place. And it was that, you mentioned it, that we ran into each other back at UNH this past winter. And, it was a crazy thing that even just happened in the first place. So kind of providing some context, this past winter, I was kind of covering for my boss. Him and his wife had a kid back in January. So I was covering his role as the men's basketball SID, which was just, I got really thrown into a fire, and I was able to really, I think, thrive and really enjoyed my time during it. But like I remember just like those first initial like road trips, I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like we're just gonna roll with it here. And I kind of got to the point where you have to be a little bit robotic when you're up there, just kind of like just going through the motions of doing what you have to do. And I remember UNH was probably like the second America East road trip I went on. I went to a road trip out at UAlbany, and then I did a couple Bryant home games and then some other things. And then I remember we go up to UNH, and I get into the arena, and everything that you're always told to do in as an SID is, oh, you go over and you give your game notes and your word rosters to the opposing to the team's broadcast. So I was like, all right, got to follow that, and then I'm going to go over to the PA guy after that. So I think I might have honestly gone to the PA guy first for public address, and then I make my way over there. And to be honest with you, dude, it didn't even click in my head that it was you at first, because I handed you the broadcast notes and I was like, hey, here's everything you need to know. If you got any questions, feel free. And then I think you ended up asking me like if I had like a radio show or something like that. Do you remember like kind of how that conversation went?
Yeah, so I knew I saw you and I was like, he looks so familiar. Like where do I know him from? And then it kind of clicked like, oh, what was the name of that show that we went on like a couple years ago? I was like, I was related to Brian. I was like, Brian, right? Like I was trying to piece it together.
Yeah.
And then I think I asked you, I was like, did you have a podcast or like something? Because I was trying to draw that connection. Yeah, so funny. And I mean, it's so different seeing someone on Zoom, seeing someone in person. I mean, especially when
Totally.
you're not expecting to see someone, but so funny.
Yeah, I mean, like I think I didn't even like call you Andrew at first. I think I ended up saying, "Oh my God, you're gone, Bridge." I
Yes.
think I think that was my exact words to you, because I think at first I think you said like, oh, was your show called like The Dog, like something like that? And I knew some people at Bryant that had a show called The Dog Talk. So I was like, oh, maybe he's friends with like these other guys from Bryant. And then I think you must have mentioned like, oh, like I'm Andrew, and we had that show gone. We had our Red Sox podcast, and I just blurted out, "Oh my God, you're gone, Bridge," and I was like, "Oh my God, I've not seen you guys in forever," and it was crazy just catching up in that moment, because like again, we hadn't seen each other for 4 years up till that point. And yeah, like that was just nuts, man.
So funny. Yeah, and the funny thing was like so one of my good friends who I've made through broadcasting, I was working with that game, Cooper Boardman, who he's now he's done a handful of series this year with the Red Sox with Middlebrooks and Fleming on EEI.
That's awesome,
And
man.
so he was just like, I hadn't even really told him about Gone Bridge, and he does a lot of stuff with the Woo Sox too, and he was like, oh, I
Oh
had no
yeah.
idea.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I remember. Were you on? Did you end up interviewing Coach Phil Martelli at halftime of that game?
I did. Yeah, I did. So we do who's ever winning and then whoever wins at the end of the game. I was doing color that game. You interview the leading or winning coach. So I interviewed him twice, and he
Yeah.
was a lot of fun to talk to.
Yeah, he's a great coach to interact with and stuff like that. I remember there were a couple times where early on in that process of me getting it, that I forgot to sometimes alert the broadcaster or alert the coach maybe where you guys were going to be at, or if you wanted to do a post game interview. I remember on my first road trip out at UAlbany, I remember I just completely blanked and I didn't tell him to go over to them, because at Bryant, like all the coaches, they know like, hey, ahead of time, you're going to go over, you're going to talk with our guys. And I completely just blanked on it. And I remember this time around, I was like, hey, like these are the guys you're going to want to talk to on this
Yeah.
time around.
If I
Uh,
remember, just like where the tunnel is at UNH, at
yeah,
least it was pretty easy to flag him down. But I've had times trying to do sideline interviews like for soccer,
it's
and
tough.
hockey
Yeah.
too. Just trying to run, grab someone, come back, and then you're like, all right, we're on in 10 seconds. And depending on what kind of shape I'm in at the moment, like I gotta catch my breath, I gotta look composed, and I'm like, all right, what are we gonna talk about?
Oh my God. Yeah. No, like that was a crazy year, man, of obviously just like everything going through that and meeting up with you. And also just like the crazy connections that I ended up meeting throughout that was just nuts. And, the fact that you were one of the people that I met up with, that was just insane.
It's a really small world, especially just, I mean, there's so many schools in New England, but seemingly every single time there's someone who you run into or someone knows someone. It's such a tight knit network, which is awesome.
Yeah. And, for you, obviously, like that's got to be kind of a cool moment for you to be able to continue to work with your alma mater post grad. Just talk about how kind of special that is for you to, go up there and work a Wildcats game.
It is awesome. I look so forward to every game I get to do up there. And I live in Boston now, so it's a little, not a hike, it's a little over an hour, but
Mhm.
it's awesome. Obviously, not only to go back up there, and my sister goes there now, so being able to see her is great. But they do such, and I'm not even just saying this because I'm an alumni. They do such an amazing job there. Uh, Dylan Hand, the director there of everything, he's phenomenal. And the production quality, the all the SIDs there, everything is just great. And facilities, same thing. And again, it's easier too when I have followed these teams for 6 or 7 years now. Some of them, you know the storylines better. Definitely makes my job a little bit easier. There's never a game at UNH where I'm short of points to talk about whatever. But it is so awesome to still have the opportunity to go up there. I got a couple soccer games on the schedule, which women's soccer starts on Sunday. Crazy enough
Yeah.
that the college athletics season is starting up so soon. But man, I enjoy it so much. It's awesome.
Yeah, I was about to say. I know the soccer season always just starts like it's incredibly early. Like I think Bryant, like it's either a men's or women's team. We have a game like I think a week from tonight, and that's just
Yep.
crazy to think about that they're going to be going back, that soon and really getting back into it.
So are you working with any of the teams at Bryant this year?
So no, actually, moving on from post grad, I actually wrapped up with them. But I just got to say that was a great experience getting a chance to work with them,
Yeah.
and they were, it was a true like, awesome. Just like you're getting thrown into everything, and you have to. Kind of learn on the fly. But for me, like that's the best thing ever. Like I learn the best that way. Like when it's just like, hey, like we're gonna go full go, and you're gonna have to figure it out. And I was able to thrive in that over those 2 years, and absolutely loved it. But I got to say too, you mentioned the SIDs. I did want to shout out Spencer Marks.
Hey.
He was the SID for men's basketball, women's volleyball, and then track and field. There, I worked with him a couple times, so I remember that he was a great he was a great person to work with up there. So I did want to shout out
Yeah.
Spencer for that. He was a
Spencer's
great
the
dude.
man. I knew Spencer super well. I met Spencer my junior year. He was a year below me.
Mhm.
But my senior year, him and I were the two sports editors for the paper.
Oh, that's awesome.
We did a radio show our junior year together. And then yeah, I know he was working for them last year. He's a great guy.
Yeah, good dude. So for you, I mean, like, you were talking about like soccer games coming up. Like, what else do you kind of have on the docket, I guess, for this season at this point? Like, anything else? Any big other gigs, kind of, in your schedule so far?
Yeah, still starting to, well, not starting. It's definitely built out right now up until hockey season is still a work in progress.
Hmm.
It's just, for me, I kind of have to act like my own agent, like juggling
Yeah.
all these schedules, figuring out like what do I have booked, what do I not have booked. Most of my weekends are, 2, 3 games, especially during crossover season.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, right now, I'll be at UNH again, BU, UMass Lowell. I've got actually a decent number of games at UConn, which I'm excited about. And then um, I will also be at Harvard again, and then still trying to figure out hockey. I'll be probably doing a little bit of radio with UMass again, kind of as like their number 3 filling guy, doing some more hockey for UNH. But yeah, I mean September. My first game's a week from yesterday, which is crazy. It'll be BU and actually UNH at BU, women's soccer. So yeah, still trying to put that schedule together. I'm actually really excited. I've got UConn Creighton volleyball.
Ooh, that's gonna be
Creighton was
good.
like the number 3 team in the country last year, and UConn. I did a volleyball game there last year. Their facility is an old like on campus ice rink that they converted into a volleyball only facility, which is awesome because it's not huge, but
Yeah.
it gets totally packed in there.
Oh yeah.
Great atmosphere. So looking forward to that one. Yeah, so pretty similar schedule to last year. A lot of soccer, a lot of volleyball, and then we'll still waiting on figuring out hockey and then baseball. But yeah, it will be busy again.
Yeah, I mean, man, like you kind of talked about it being like your own agent. I was, going kind of perusing through your sports broadcaster page, and you have some crazy stats that like you kind of posted them up in your end of year recap. I mean, you said what was it, 58 total games? You had eight different sports, eight different schools, and like you're covering, like as you said, hockey, baseball, basketball, volleyball, and like water polo of all those things. Like, how are you prioritizing that? Like, it seems like a lot to juggle all at once. How have you managed to do it?
That's a great question. I even struggle. It's just about staying like honestly, the best advice I had was to try to stay 2 weeks ahead, which I try to do,
Mhm.
especially early in the season. But to be completely honest, I try to stay a week ahead.
Yeah.
And it's all about, as you mentioned, prioritizing. And honestly, as the season kind of moves along, it gets easier, and it certainly gets easier when you're doing games for teams that you've already seen. But for me, it's I mean, I spend a lot of time doing prep work before games, making spot sheets with rosters and info, stats, quotes, interviewing players, coaches before the week. It's certainly like when you're watching a game, whether it be a college game or obviously like a big four league game, there is so much prep that goes into that for the broadcasters. It's not just about like showing up, here's a roster, let's talk the game. So yeah, it's all about just honestly a lot of nights staying up probably a little later than I should after work, trying to get it all done, and staying ahead of it. But yeah, I got a calendar, stay ahead of it, check it off. And it's definitely easier. Last year was kind of my first year of doing a lot of different schools, making all these relationships with these new schools, meeting people kind of in the Boston area doing this too. And so now again, having like a year under my belt, learning these teams a little better, you know who you're working with, which always makes it easier. But yeah, it's a lot of lists.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a lot. I mean, like I have to give you so much credit for it. I mean, the research that you guys do as broadcasters is really and truly just like groundbreaking. I think for, myself who was an SID for the past 2 years covering teams like, you have to kind of learn a little bit of the background and some of the history behind some of these players, but sometimes you guys will even, dig up little nuggets that like, I don't even know about them. And, you're talking with these guys like day in and day out. And, there will be some broadcasters that I'll talk to. And, I remember covering a men's lacrosse game. And I think, one of the guys that is our broadcasters for them, like he came up to me and he was just like, oh, do you know this guy on your team was like an all-state, like, state champion, like quarterback or something like that? And I'm like, I had no idea. Like it never came up. I just only knew his lacrosse background or vice versa. And like it's crazy how knowledgeable you guys are able to come in because like we'll have our notes and we'll have our list of things, but the fact that I always see you guys with the manila folders with everything lined up, like you guys are always seem to have it all buttoned up. Like just talk about that deep research.
Well, honestly, I mean, a credit to you and all SIDs, because without you guys, I mean, the broadcasts would not be 50% as good and thorough as they're supposed to come off to be, because those game notes that you guys prepare are like lifesavers, especially when it comes to certain different things. I love using those for like scenarios like out rebounding a team, or with hockey like this team
Yeah.
is record trailing, or just looking through those and trying to kind of read in between the lines and being like, what storylines can I dig out of here? Like, it's great to find like, yeah, this player's got 2 goals in the last 3 games and all that, and that's great to bring up, but it's all about like finding those little like the juicy nuggets, again, those storylines. But yeah, it's a process. It all starts with just I've got a template, put the team in, numbers, names, pronunciations. That's honestly like the biggest part of it, is you
Yeah.
gotta get the name right. And then yeah, I've got another kind of line for stats, which changes for whatever sport I'm doing, and then I've got another section for just like general notes too, and then at the bottom I'll put quotes. Because honestly, I think quotes are again what really ties it together. Like if you're watching, you're like, all right, like this guy talked with the coach, he talked with a player, like you
He
can
talked
weave
with he
in.
talked with like a news agency or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. And it kind of ties together different moments of, the coach talked about. I remember I was doing a hockey game and the coach was talking about like, it sounds like such a minute detail, but he was like, we've been working all week in practice on one timers and like quick release, top of the circle, get the puck off. That game, they scored a one timer goal. And I'm like, here, we can reference this. And like,
Yeah.
that's just a perfect example of like, again, you're not going to be able to use everything every game. And I think you always try to be over prepared. You're supposed to be over prepared, have way too much stuff. But yeah, it's having all of those kind of elements to pull at stats, storylines, quotes. Those are kind of like the holy trinity of what goes into a good broadcast, at least in my eyes.
Yeah, I think that, there is definitely some parallels between, what you had and then what you've kind of done on your end. And then, kind of with my experience on the communication side, like I have to kind of give my former boss, Tristan Hobbs, a lot of credit with this. He always talked about, in your profession and in mine, like the goal is to tell a story. And like
Mm-hmm.
that, like that's the idea. Yeah, you can call a game straight up and it can be fine, but when you can tie in elements like that and make it completely unique, because anyone can, I shouldn't say anyone, but a lot of people can, a lot of broadcasters can, narrate the game and kind of just go through the motions. But when you can integrate that stuff in, that's when it becomes truly special.
Totally. And that was for me, at least, because again, this was not what I went to college for. This is not what I
Nah.
graduated in. This has all been kind of self-taught, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's all been a learning process of when I look back at my first 2 years when I was in college, a lot of the games I was doing was more so, that baseline stuff of a lot less prep beforehand. I know all the numbers of the guys or girls on this team. They get the ball, they get the puck, describing it as well as I can, but it's that extra element of, what's the history of this player? Where have they moved around? Where has it shifted this year, last year? Like, and again, you're not going to know every single detail on every single player, like impossible,
Yeah,
especially when you're not covering the same team for
routinely. Yeah.
the entirety of a season. But exactly, like that's kind of what separates, I think, like it's just that preparation aspect. And one of the best things like I've heard too is you don't notice a good broadcaster. Like you're watching the game and you just don't notice it. Like kind of you just want it to blend into the background.
You can notice a bad one though.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've watched a good fair amount of broadcasts, and I won't say names, but I've seen people to where I'm like, oh boy, like there have been there have been, and some of them have been my own where I'm like, oh, that's tough. But
Hey,
I've seen some broadcasts where and where even at the pro level where I'm just like, oh, like you can tell that maybe someone's struggling at that end, or even on the collegiate end, and or maybe this person didn't do their research. So when you know that that person has put in all that they can, like it really does show.
yeah, and I do the same thing. Like again, those first 2 years when I was in college, I kind of look back at it as just like those were my like I don't even know what you call it, like my pre. I don't even really like to count them. Like just all
Yeah,
practice reps. Because yeah, watching back some of those games, and I think that's a good thing. I think whether that be
totally.
broadcasting or anything, you looking back at your prior work, if it's in a creative field and kind of cringing a little bit, I think that's a good thing. It shows improvement. Shows that you can take criticism on yourself. But yes, that has 100% happened.
No, I can completely agree with that. I mean, I especially with me, like I've gone back and I've like watched or listened to some of even like my old podcasts, and like
Yeah.
there are some things where I just hear it and I'm like, why did I say that? I'm like, that sounded horrible. And like I'll probably do the same thing maybe with this show. Give it in like 2 years. I'm gonna listen back
Yep.
and I'm gonna be like, what the hell was I doing? But like it's so funny in the moment, just like that you don't even think about it, and everyone's gonna have like that 2020 perspective on stuff.
Totally. And again, it's all about just like building. Like I think that's why like in any space you've got like the people you look up to and you're like they're so good at this, and it's just all about reps. Like they've
Yeah.
just been doing it for longer. Like yes, you can have the same equipment, you can have the same editing, this and that, and you can have the same knowledge, but at the end of the day it comes down to reps.
Yeah. So for you, I got to ask, you mentioned that you had a hockey background growing up. I know you had the Red Sox podcast, and,
Mhm.
with a good variety of sports, is there one that you favor over the others calling?
Yeah, like I love calling hockey for a number of reasons. Like just me as a person, I love being busy and I love being just like so involved in something that like it's almost too much, like too crazy. And especially if you're doing it on the radio, most of the hockey I do is the TV broadcast, but hockey is so fast. It's so different than any other sport. And part of it is, yes, I grew up playing. I love, besides the Red Sox, like I watch hockey as, or more than any other sport. But it's so different from any other sport where I like my sheet for hockey is more as an aid, not a guide.
Mhm.
Whereas like a soccer game or a baseball game, even or kind of a slower sport, you can look down at it, look at a number, match the name to a number if you don't directly remember it, and you'll have that time to look up, and they probably still have the ball. The pitch won't have been thrown yet. For hockey, you're screwed if you really don't know names, if you don't know any of the background. It's so fast. Like again, you look down, the puck's already moved up the ice. You've got to be so descriptive. I just love. I think hockey. There's a good balance too of like those moments where your voice goes up and the action just peaks. Like obviously you don't want to be bringing that to the table every play, but a big save, a big goal, you know, you kind of get that adrenaline as a broadcaster when those moments happen, like knowing that your voice is going to be like the backtrack to that moment, which is super cool. But I just love, especially like a lot of it's at UNH or UMass, like packed building, great crowd. It's fast, it's competitive. It's again, I'm not partial to any sport, but hockey is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can definitely tell that it's something that's near and dear to your heart. And I got to give you credit for, saying that it is, probably, higher up on your list. Just like based on the fact of how difficult that sport is to call and to be, good at doing it. Like it takes a lot of skill to be good in that area because it is like no other sport that you're calling. Like you have time in between a lot of plays, even in a sport like football or basketball. There's some lulls, with them taking the ball up the court, like guys like, wasting time on the shot clock, and then you're doing that sort of thing. In hockey, it is go, go, go all the time.
Especially from the play-by-play side for hockey, because
Definitely.
again, in those other sports, like your color commentator will jump in with a point during the play, or in soccer, the ball kind of falls its way back into the defensive side of the field, and they've got a second to talk before the ball moves up. Like especially on the radio, you're kind of taught like the color guy doesn't talk unless the whistle's blown.
Mhm.
So as a play-by-play guy, like again, you've got to be on. You're on it 100% of the time, and then still, like if there are details you want to sneak in, you've got to be like strategic with it too, because you want to give your whoever you're working with for color that time to say what they want to say too. So yeah, it is fast paced, it's quick, and especially like Hockey East, where UNH, UMass, BC, Northeastern, the conference they're in, it is the best conference in college hockey. I don't remember the exact number, but something to the effect of like mid 60s, 50s to 60 players in the conference who are NHL draft picks this year. It's honestly barely a step below like minor league hockey. It's awesome.
Yeah, and that's very true. There are a lot of guys in that league that have made a huge impact in the NHL and even internationally doing their sort of thing. But kind of for you, like there have been probably a ton of memorable games that you've been able to be a part of. Even just from at UNH, I saw that you're able to call an overtime winner. You're able to call a game against number one BC. Just what are some of your favorite games that you've been a part of during your broadcast career? And this doesn't necessarily need to be hockey. It could be maybe
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like kind of the firsts of working at any school, like just having that first opportunity to do a game at any of these schools that I've worked at has been awesome. I did a couple of BC baseball games this past spring. I did a BC UNC game, which was a lot of fun. Again, like great crowd on hand. UNC had a couple guys, I think two guys who won the first round of this year's draft. Just great talent to watch, and it's not always about to like those big games or big moments too. I think sometimes it's like this end of season game. There's a lot at stake. Like how will this play out playoff wise? Like the storylines. What's going to come out of this, and just the kind of the tension before the game. Like those are some of my favorite games. But yeah, the UNH BC game that I got to do in the spring for hockey was awesome. I actually only found out not even 24 hours before the game that I was going to be doing it,
Oh my God.
and that almost never happens
Mhm.
that you're on that short of notice. Like I've got again games scheduled for February right now. So I'm not going to start to prepare now, but I've got 6 months until then. I think it was like 10 o'clock at night that I found out like, hey, we need someone. Can you do this? And I had done a few UNH hockey games last year, but that was just not when I was scheduled for originally. And so I think I was up till genuinely probably 3 in the morning trying to get all my notes together. Thankfully, I had done a UMass BC game earlier that year. I'd done UNH, so I had both of those sheets already made, updating them, reading, watching, trying to. They were actually playing. This was the Saturday night game. They were playing that night, so I'm watching the end of the Friday night game, and then I get to bed at 3. I had to wake up at I want to say 6:30 because I had a morning water polo tournament at Harvard for 9 in the morning. So I get over there. I had 3 games that morning. I wrap up around 1, get back to my apartment, quick lunch, change, like print everything out, and then I'm on the road to UNH by like 2:33 to get up there for like 4:35 before the game. And then that game was unbelievable. It went into overtime, crazy saves. The wit was sold out, just so much fun. So again, that is not a normal scenario at all, but like that whole day was just such a whirlwind. I can't remember what time I slept till on Sunday, but I remember just waking up and I was like, what happened yesterday?
Just absolutely gassed.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, that's incredible to hear, man. I think, just seeing how far you've come so far, it's incredible to see for you. Where do you kind of see like where do you hope maybe the future of this is going to lead? I like what is kind of maybe that next step that you want to take?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately having like having a job with a network or you know, if I really would love like obviously the NHL would be my
Oh, of
my
course.
total dream, which that is a lot of people's dream. But I'm also like totally okay to realize that may never happen in my lifetime. And I'm not like shooting myself down, but like there's only so many teams, there's only so many spots, there's only so much turnover every year. And honestly, I just want to kind of continue to I don't know, like just kind of continue what I'm doing. Like I really enjoy it right now, like working with so many different schools. And honestly, if I could focus like entirely like more towards hockey, filling out my entire winter schedule like that, like I think that's kind of the next step for me is, um, maybe doing a network thing, Big Ten or whatever that may be. I mean, again, long term NHL would be the ultimate dream. Um, but having or getting to do D1 hockey games is so much fun as it is. So I'm kind of along for the ride, and that's how it's been this whole time for me. It's just get better and see where it takes me. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And then, are there any other sports that you maybe ever want to try to add to your resume in the future? I
That's a
know, I
good
know, I know you got a bunch right now, but I didn't know if there were any others that
Yeah,
maybe
that's
down
it.
the
No,
line.
that's a good question. I mean, the big one that I've never done is football,
Hmm.
which obviously there are just not a ton of games. And again, it's just something you gotta, I think, put your time in and get eventually. Um, I think it would be fun, but honestly, the sport I really do want to do is tennis. I think
Okay.
tennis would be a lot of fun. From a broadcasting perspective, I think that's more so just like a storyline driven broadcast. Like if you watch Wimbledon
Hmm.
or the US Open, I don't watch a ton of tennis, but when I will tune in, it's quiet during the play. And then, as a play by play broadcaster, I think it's a little easier because then the color commentator comes in and is like, here's what happened on that last play. But I don't know. I think that would be a really fun sport to try. Yeah, I've done field hockey, water polo, kind of all the other big ones, softball. I don't know. Harvard, they have fencing too, and rugby. I have not signed up to try those yet, but maybe in the future, those will be two more. But I will have to definitely watch a lot of tape before that.
Yeah, absolutely. As someone, yourself with a hockey background, I know, from talking with people in athletics, a sport that they're looking for a lot of broadcasters in, and they've been, trying to take people from hockey is actually lacrosse. And because there's a ton of parallels with those two sports, and I've heard that there's been really kind of a demand for, for more broadcasters in that space as well.
Yeah, totally. I feel like lacrosse is kind of growing every year. Not every school has it, but
Yeah.
it's definitely like I know Brian's got a pretty good team.
Mm.
Um, yeah, lacrosse is another sport that I have done a decent bit of because sometimes the spring in New England can be a little bit quieter. It's basically again not a lot of teams have or not a lot of schools, not all right, not every school I should say has baseball or softball. So it's pretty much just
Yeah.
lacrosse and those two sports in the spring. So yeah, I do find myself doing a little bit of lacrosse, and it's another sport I've learned a lot about. I never played
Yeah.
when I was a kid,
Neither did I.
and that is one sport too that men's and women's could not be any more different.
Oh my God, you want to preach to the choir on that one. Like, so I was the
Yeah,
so I was the men's lacrosse SID my 2 years as a grad assistant. And like, like as someone who never watched a full lacrosse game, never even knew what was happening in their life, like, it was something that I was actually able to really engage with. And kind of, over the 2 years, like, like these coaches and stuff that I've worked with, they've forgotten more than I'll ever learn about the sport. Like I've come to, understand and respect that. But like, it's really just engaging to, watch and just see. So like it's really insane to kind of see just like, how dynamic and how much that sport's been evolving.
it's super cool, and I feel like the pro leagues again, not something I follow super closely. They seem to be growing, and again, I know like kind of at the youth level when I was younger, like there were just fewer people playing baseball, like more people going to
Oh yeah.
lacrosse, especially in the Northeast. It's a very popular sport. I don't know what like the levels are now at the youth level, but
Yeah.
there were so many times where my friends were like not playing baseball this spring. I'm going to lacrosse,
Yeah.
and I just remember like kind of as each grade went on, the number of youth teams kind of started to dwindle down. So
Yeah.
I know it's super popular and it's a lot of fun. It's fast paced. Again, both. It's honestly like learning kind of two different games between the men's and women's side. Both a
Yeah.
lot of fun to cover though.
Yeah, I will say on the women's side, it can be entertaining when it's going, but sometimes if you're dealing with teams that maybe have a slower pace of play, that's a sport that can really drag on.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the shot clock's like. Is it ninety
It's
seconds?
Yeah, it's weird. And like the deal with the women's, like, which the women's is a rule that I love, is that after a 10 goal lead, it's that running clock. And I
Yes.
and I love that rule because, like, when there's so many stoppages, like in the men's league, those guys like the face-off guys will run right out and they'll get back after it. And the women's team, there has to be the stick inspection, everything like that. And like it can be sometimes like over a minute before the teams are back at the face-off X. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot more rules. Like you mentioned, like after every goal, they got to look at the stick. Obviously, no, I guess checking. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
It's
it's
it,
it's
it
just,
the,
it's
the
just very
women's
different.
I was about to say the women's lacrosse, like I've had a couple people say it. It's also kind of similar to basketball in the way like that, like
Yes.
they into the way like the offense and stuff kind of rolls out.
I'm definitely not the guy to ask X's and O's about women's
No,
lacrosse on,
no,
but
and
I
sitting here,
would
no,
I
I have
would
no
have to
idea.
agree from like what I've seen is it's more about like area passes, finding space, and it's not a lot of like obviously it kind of comes down to one-on-one, but it's not like you give one player the ball, she isolates, makes something happen. A lot of ball movement.
Yeah, exactly. Now, yeah, it's kind of crazy seeing how all that's gone down. But yeah, I did want to just like kind of pick your brain on other sports, maybe where you're kind of going. But that's
Yeah.
awesome to know. But yeah, man, like obviously it's been great to have you on the show. But I figured, before we go, this whole thing started off when, 4 years ago I had you on to talk some stuff from Gone Bridge, and we had some Red Sox talk. So I figured, as we're kind of up against the clock here, we'd kind of throw it back to some of the Gone Bridge days and kind of talk about the Sox right now if
I
you're up
love it.
for it. Yeah. So
Oh,
I mean,
100%. I miss Klaus and Steve and I. We still text like all day every day about the Sox. It's just
mm,
honestly it kind of boiled down to, and I'm sure you can relate, finding that time to do the show. You want it at a good quality, a good length, and
Yeah.
you work the 9 to 5, then you go into the gym. You got to make dinner. Like it's not college anymore where you've got a 3 or 4 hour break in the middle of the day, and then you're like, hey, I'm gonna stay up till 2 in the morning because I don't have to go to class till 11 tomorrow.
Exactly.
So again, for us, like for it not being our full time jobs, like still love it. And we were talking this weekend. We're gonna try to do an episode, the three of us, before the season ends. But
There we
100%,
go. There we go.
still,
A
yeah,
little a little teaser there.
little tease. Yeah, I definitely miss, and I know they do too, doing it and talking about the team. So 100%, let's do it.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of just jumping off with it. Obviously the series in San Diego, they kind of took their lumps there at losing 2 out of 3. They had a good first showing. Just kind of talk about the team in general up to this point. I know it's been, I haven't really even done a ton of sports talk up till this point, so I think kind of just recapping where we've gotten to this season, with the Devers trade, with the deadline. What has been your take on the team up till this point in the season so far?
It's been such a weird year, but honestly, compared to the last 2022 to 2024, I mean, the way it's kind of shaken out here now, and I can't believe it's already mid-August.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun. It's not to say there have not been bumps along the road. I mean, another slow start. They started out, was it 1-5 or 1-4?
Yeah, it was a tough start to the year.
Super slow start. Obviously, Devers gets off to the slow start, and like everyone's critical about him and all the stuff that happened in spring training. And we now know, obviously, the end result of all that and the hell that raised among Red Sox fans when he got traded. But from my understanding and kind of the feel around, going to games, talking to people, being on social media, I feel like people have kind of forgotten about the Devers trade now, like kind of moved on. Not forgotten's not the best way to say it, because there are still times when Jordan Hicks will blow a game and people are like, hey, this guy is not great. But overall, it has been a really just fun year. Like the team, they just feel like they're back. Like you've got these star players who the last handful of years, even in 2021, in some sense, they went on that great run. Like still miss those star guys. Like you've got Bregman, you've got Crochet, you're calling up Roman Anthony. It's crazy you trade Devers and there's still this laundry list of guys. Like say Don has had such a crazy year. Like Duran's moved out of the leadoff spot. I feel like there was all that talk about him before the trade deadline, and nothing ends up happening. But you kind of forget about even Duran a little bit. Campbell was off to such a good start in April. He's been in the minors since early, or was it mid-June, late June? Yeah. Just so many pieces to this team. A guy like Houck too hasn't even been in the mix. He'll be out obviously the rest of this year and next year. But it's been an interesting year. There's been so many ups and downs, but I think if you asked any Red Sox fan, August 11th, the Red Sox are, I believe, 2.5, 3 games into the wild card. Mm-hmm. Would you take that? And there has been a lot of drama. There's been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, but I think everybody would have signed up for this team this year. And my last thing about this is I think a big indicator for me is ticket prices. And earlier this year, I know it's colder. People don't really want to go to games. Actually, Steve and I went to the first home series against Toronto. Crochet's first start. It was 14 degrees at first pitch. It was, oh my God, horrible.
Sounds awful.
But ticket prices have gone through the roof the last 6 weeks. Like this past week against Kansas City, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday series, tickets standing room $100. And so for me, I think that just speaks to people want to see this team play. They know they're fun. Fenway just has that different feel again. I don't know. I think this team, I do think that the AL is pretty wide open. I'll say that.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. I think, and like you said, I think if you asked a bunch of Red Sox fans at the start of the season, hey, come mid-August, you're going to be right in the middle of the wild card hunt. You have a wild card spot actually locked up. You're not like one of those teams on the outside looking in. And you're playing competitive baseball games. And you're having some win streaks in there, and you're really being one of the top teams in the league at different points. I think a lot of fans would say, hell yeah, let's get on board with it. I think if they knew the different beats that it took to get there, they would have had some more questions in the process of it. But still, I think there's been a lot more heart and character to this team, I think, this year than in years past. I think come this time like post deadline, unfortunately you've kind of seen it with Cora and with like these different teams where there's kind of always been that post deadline hangover where, even in 2021 when they made that postseason and they made it to the ALCS, they were kind of thriving, they were kind of thriving up until that deadline. And, Schwarber went on to actually have the, great second half that he had, but, there were even questions
And
then,
he
but
hasn't stopped.
no, exactly. Like that's the thing. Like he's just kept going. He's been a machine. But I think like it's just been, definitely a lot more enjoyable to watch this team this year. I think that, there's not going to be a ton of quit. Like there's no quit in them. Like they're going to go out there and they're going to be competing every single day. And then personally, as a Sox fan, I don't think you could have said that last year. There were times where I felt that, they were going to just kind of roll over and, just take it.
Well, it's the difference with honestly two guys, Trevor Story and Alex Bregman. Obviously,
Yeah.
Bregman coming in, he brings the winning atmosphere for everything he did in Houston. But Trevor Story, since he was signed in 2022, has been advertised. We haven't gotten to see it much, and I know it's been frustrating to him as this big leader, not even just what he can do on the field, but being this off the field guy. And the question that we've asked on the show the last 3 years is who is the leader of this team? Because when Trevor Story breaks, the laundry list of injuries that he's had, unfortunately, and he's, missed essentially most of 2023 and 2024. You kind of look down the table because he's not with the team every single day. Who's the leader of this team? Like Devers is the best hitter, but it was a common known fact. Like he was never going to be like the captain of that team.
Yeah,
He
no.
was not like people would be like he's David Ortiz Jr., which like yeah, I guess with the bat, like I mean even that is a stretch, but
Yeah.
like he did not have the personality or any of that to lead, and we saw kind of the tantrums he threw when he got moved to DH, got asked to move to first, and then he goes to San Francisco. I'm trying to remember who he blew off there. His first week to I think it was Will Clark maybe asked him
Yeah, it was Will
to
Clark.
come out
Will
and do
Clark.
some
Yep.
reps at first. Didn't do it. So again, I think it's just more been a character thing. You see that, and it's been more so just a revolving door the last couple of years of like, hey, our big offseason additions are Justin Turner, Adam Duvall, and Kenley Jansen, all stopgap guys. And it was
Yeah.
obviously waiting for, at the time, Anthony and Meyer, and then Campbell kind of emerged, Teal, like Montgomery, like all those other guys to build this kind of fantastic team that they've got right now. But I think it really just boils down to leadership. Like Bayo's a year older. Like he's taken a big jump this year. Giolito, even from the first couple starts he's made to his last, like, I don't know, 11 or 12, he didn't obviously have a great start in San Diego on Saturday, but I think that's just kind of where the difference is you're right. They're not just going to roll over. Like there's veteran leadership here. They're into it. Got the airplane celebration. It just feels like a team, and
Yeah.
that cultivates.
Yeah, it's not like a divided locker room anymore. It definitely
No.
does feel. It feels a lot more united, and not like you said. I think Trevor Story's been a big addition to that, and Alex Bregman. For me as a Sox fan for so many years, I hated him as an Astro. He was like that guy that you just like despise. Like, and I think this is how outside hockey fans viewed like Brad Marchand essentially in Boston.
Yeah.
Is like to where they're like, oh, I despise this guy, but he is that kind of guy when it's like, oh, when he's on your roster, you can understand like what he brings to the table. And like I definitely have seen, like him have a certain level of maturity with the guys. Like I think you were seeing the stories earlier in the year of him buying suits for a bunch of the rookies and different things like that. Like him kind of being a mentor for those guys has been, something that's been really valuable to this team. And even during his injury stint, he's over there with the guys on the tablet showcasing them different pitch selections. And even, I've been hearing stories of him talking with pitchers saying like, hey, this is how I would pick you apart. This is what you should do in this instance instead. Like he's been a true leader. And I mean, you want to talk about a guy who's probably going to have a managerial career, post career, it's going to be him.
It reminds me so much, obviously not 100%, but just kind of what he does when he's not on the field reminds me so much of JD in that first year
Mm.
of kind of similar like building of that team. Like I can't believe it's almost a decade ago, but like they
Yeah.
get Price after a bad year in 2015, then they get Sale, then they get JD. Like you just keep adding. And Bregman's 100% been that guy. Like I know people are talking about the extension, like he's got an opt out after this year. I don't even know if he'll use that. Like we'll see how that all plays out. But big news. I saw he was in a Sam Adams commercial this morning, and he's got his own beer line with them now. I think it's called the Bregman Brew or something like that. So that's a good sign.
Yeah,
Obviously, he likes it here.
yeah.
People in Boston love him. So
I know.
he's fit so well because totally agree. I wasn't huge on him, but he's been awesome.
Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, he's got a signature beer now. Derek White's got one. I mean, two great superstars in Boston. I hope that similarly to D White, we can lock him up long term. But I guess for you, I think my concern with the team, like I did want us to go out and get a number two starter at the deadline. And evidently they got Steven Matz, who's more of like that kind of that stopgap bullpen guy. For you, you talked about, Bayo and Giolito taking those steps going forward. Again, I don't necessarily see them as guys that are going to roll over, but, do you think that come a playoff series, you know what you're going to get out of Garrett Crochet? He's going to go out and he's going to shove and he's going to do his thing. But when you go to that game 2, game 3, how confident do you feel in a Brian Bayo and Lucas Giolito?
That's a great question. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Like, I mean, I would be more confident, or like I was more confident. You go back to the kind of the last set of teams that had starting pitchers. Like, I would definitely be more comfortable, and like you kind of go down a little bit, like a Rick Porcello or an Eddie Rodriguez
Yeah, I
type
feel
of
the
guy.
same way. Yeah.
Again, I think it's just part of the maturity process. Like, we've seen the jump from Bayo this year where like he was terrible in day games up until this season, like ERA over 6. He's not trying to just go for swing and miss stuff, like generating weak contact, because before, like, he seemingly would have a couple good innings and then he'd get caught, like pitch count would get too high, caught up. But anyways, I don't know. I completely agree. I wanted Joe Ryan or Merrill Kelly so bad, and it totally sucked when that Fox graphic came
Oh
out.
my
And I,
God.
I wasn't on Twitter that exact moment, but I was looking and I was like, so did they get him or not? And like I saw the screenshots of the deleted post, because that is the type of guy who, when you're another team and you're down 0-1 and you've got to go against Joe Ryan in game 2, you're like, especially if the Red Sox are in that first round best of 3, you're like, we're screwed. Like,
Yeah.
we're putting no or very few other teams number 2 guy is going to measure up to a Joe Ryan. So yeah, I was definitely disappointed in that sense, because now you look at the rotation and beyond those 3 guys, like you've got Dustin May and you've got like Fitz, and you've got, I know there's I'm forgetting Bueller. I legitimately keep forgetting about him because he's had a not a great year, but obviously he dealt with some injuries too. Dobbins was dealing when he was
Yeah.
healthy, and Hauk too. But at the very least this year they kind of have had more depth. Like, they were adding all these guys, like even a Patrick Sandoval in the offseason who's not going to pitch, and people were like, another starter, another starter. You're like, this is why. Even Cooper Criswell in his brief appearances, he had a 7-inning start, or was it 7 or 8? Anyways, good start. Yeah, I think that is the make or break kind of piece of this team is the pitching. Like, the lineup's going to deliver, but who's going to step up?
Hmm. Yeah. That's going to be the big question. I don't, it's going to have to be like these guys are going to have to really mature on the fly. Now, Lucas Giolito he's been a proven starter in the big
Yep.
leagues, prior to injury. So we'll see, if he can continue this going forward. Brian Bayo, like you said, has had some more, he's kind of developed more as the years have gone on. But, I think kind of as we start to, close out this episode, I guess the last kind of question I have for you is, where do you like, what is like the the bottom like kind of expectation you have for this team, and then like what is like the ceiling that you see this team as?
Yeah. So real quick, Giolito, I was just looking in the playoffs, 2 games, a 3.97 ERA and 12 strikeouts in 11 innings. So
Okay.
very, very small sample size, but yes,
Yeah.
he has done it. I don't think it is irresponsible to say that if this team misses the playoffs, it would be a complete and utter
Catastrophic
disappointment.
failure. Yeah,
Yeah,
catastrophic
complete
failure.
disappointment. There are obviously, so in the wild card, you've got the Mariners have won 7 in a row, so they're, I think, a game or half game above the Sox right now. But
Yeah,
then you've got the
they're
Yankees under them.
yeah, they're a game above right now, the Mariners.
Yeah, so pretty tight. And then Cleveland's been hot too, and then Texas is still kind of hanging around. I think anybody under Texas, like Tampa Bay, Minnesota, like you can kind of write them off at this point. So yeah, I think 100% missing the playoffs would be a catastrophic failure. I would love to see if they don't win the division, which is still in hand, only 4 games back of Toronto. I would love to see them get that top wild card spot because that ensures a playoff game at Fenway. If you get the second and third wild card, if you lose that first series, you're not playing at home. So
Mhm.
I think for me, the bottom of this team is just getting into the playoffs. I'd love to see them host a series like Red Sox Yankees. First round would be awesome. I'd obviously love to see the Yankees just not even make it. But uh, yeah, I think get in and then go from there. What Toronto's got a decent team too, but like maybe a little inexperienced. Like they've been talking since I remember 2021, that year we came on the show. Like they went on that hot run at the end, almost knocked the Red Sox out of the playoffs, and they were
I
like, what?
know.
This is the appetizer, or this was the preview. Next year's the movie never came.
Yeah.
So they've kind of been building too. Houston, I just think you can't write them off.
No.
No matter who's on that team, there's just something in the air there.
Yeah.
Um, but again, I think the AL is pretty wide open. I think not trying to jinx it because I'm gonna knock on wood because that is kind of what I'm known for. But I think they should make the playoffs.
Yeah, I'd like to think so too, and I think that if they were to end up missing it, I would have to agree with you, and I would say like at that point you'd have to have conversations about like what does Cora's future look like here, what does even Breslow's future look like if that's the case, and you don't do that at the deadline, like that would be a lot to have to hang your hat on if this team, especially at this point now, was to slip out of the playoff race. So again, we're gonna have to see how that all keeps going, but. Andrew, I just want to say thank you so much again, man. It's been a pleasure to have you back on the pod. I know it's been, 4 years, but, just thank you again for taking the time.
No, I was so excited when you reached out. Really appreciate it. Ton of fun. And yeah, hopefully I will see you around again soon. Who knows what kind of game we'll run into each other again at.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for people maybe kind of watching the show, where can they find you at? I know you have a sports broadcasting page if you want to shout that out.
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me pull up that handle because I actually don't know it off the top of my head. It is A Gardner Broadcasts on Instagram, and then on Twitter you can just follow me. It is Gardner Andrew _ on there, and most of the time, honestly, at this point, I really just post broadcasting stuff on Twitter, the occasional Sox stuff as well. But if you're interested in seeing what I'm going to be talking about that day, you can hit me up there.
All right. Well, Andrew, thank you so much once again. Thank you for taking the time.
Appreciate it, Brian.